If your roof was replaced before 2011, your home might legally be sellable, but to a financed buyer in 2026, it's practically radioactive. Not because of leaks and not because of missing shingles, but because Florida's insurance environment has completely changed the rules of the game. I want to be transparent with you about the market we're actually in. In 2025, I closed 33 transactions. Great homes, great clients, solid contracts. But looking back at my data, 12 of those 33 deals, more than 1/3, hit a crisis point specifically because of the roof. Now, I'm not talking about a minor patch. I'm talking about zombie permits that expired years ago and came back to life in the middle of the sale. I'm talking about heirs almost getting sued by their HOA. I'm talking about timelines pushed back for 2 months and sellers losing thousands of dollars they never expected to lose. We saved these deals, but it cost time, money, and stress that never needed to happen. Today, I'm going to walk you through the Florida roof rules of 2026. I'm going to tell you real stories of 2 deals that almost fell apart. And I'm going to give you the exact playbook I now require for my listings so you're not one of those 12 preventable statistics. First, if you're moving here from Ohio, New York, or California, you need to reset your expectations. In other states, a home inspector looks at a roof and says, it doesn't leak, and you move on. In Florida, the inspector does not make the rules. The insurance company does. Here's the truth. Insurance carriers in Florida have lost billions to hurricanes and litigation. Because of that, they tightened their guidelines far more than ever before. In 2026, the moment a shingle roof hits 15 years of age, it's flagged as high risk. Carriers do one of 2 things. They deny the policy or they raise the premium to $7,000 or $8,000 a year, and the buyer no longer qualifies for the loan. You think you're selling a house. What you're really selling is an insurable asset. If it is not insurable, you don't have a buyer. Let me tell you the first story, the zombie permit. The seller said the roof was replaced only 2 years ago. The contractor pulled the permit, so everything was fine. We go under contract, everything looks smooth, then the title search comes in. The permit was expired. The contractor had never scheduled the mid-roof inspection, never scheduled the final inspection, and never closed the permit. Because it was expired, the city could not just come and take a look. The work was already covered. The only fix was to hire a structural engineer to certify the roof to code, then open a new permit, submit the engineering report, and wait. The result? 8 weeks of delay. 8 weeks of the buyer living in a hotel. 8 weeks of the seller paying a mortgage on a home that was supposed to already be sold. The moral? When you hire a contractor, do not pay in full until you verify that the permit is closed, right there on the city website with your own eyes. Story number 2, the HOA lotto ticket. This home was inherited. The heirs lived out of state and did not know how strict the HOA was. They needed a new roof. The roofer asked what color they wanted. They flipped through a brochure and chose weathered wood. The roof goes on, $18,000 spent. It looks great. We list it, and then we find out the HOA sent a letter stating that we needed to get approval for the color of the shingle. Normally, the roofer does this with the homeowner, but not this time. The roofer just went forward with replacement. The HOA allows exactly 1 shingle color, weathered wood. They got lucky by accident. If they had picked charcoal or slate or any other very common color, the HOA could have forced them to rip off a brand new roof and redo the job at their own expense. The moral? Never touch the exterior of a home in a deed-restricted community without written design board approval first. These stories show you why you need a pro and not just a door opener. The most common mistake I see is not permits or HOAs. It's the idea of offering a closing credit. Sellers say, I can't afford a new roof, so I'll just give the buyer a credit at closing. In 2026 Florida, A credit for a roof is like a credit for a car with no engine. The buyer still can't drive it. To close on a mortgage, the buyer must have an active insurance policy on closing day. To get that policy, the roof has to pass the 4-point inspection. If it fails, the carrier says no. If the carrier says no, then the lender says no. So the credit is useless because the buyer never gets to the closing table to use it. And yes, I know the next thought, I can't pay for a new roof before I sell. Here's the solution. I have relationships with roofers who understand this exact problem. If you don't have the cash, they'll install the roof now and wait to be paid at closing from your proceeds. They replace the roof, we pass the inspection, buyer gets insurance, the loan closes, and the title company cuts them a check from your profit. No extra fees, no high interest financing, no liens, just a clean transaction. So how do we avoid zombie permits, HOA disasters, and insurance denials? Here's my 2026 protocol. Step 1, the pre-listing insurance inspection. We order a pre-listing 4-point inspection from a licensed home inspector. Insurance companies look at 4 things: roof, electrical panel, plumbing, and HVAC. This inspector signs the roof condition certification. We want that certification showing 5 years of useful life before the buyer ever shows up. If we find an issue, we fix it now on our terms. Step 2, the permit and HOA audit. I review the permit history and have the owner pull an HOA request for information. We look for expired permits. We look for shingle color restrictions and make sure there are no HOA violations hanging out. We find the issues before the buyer does. Step 3, the pay at close strategy. If the roof is truly at the end of its life, we bring in my pay at closing crew, get the roof done, and get you to the closing table with 0 upfront cost. The difference between a stressful transaction and a smooth one is usually information. The 12 clients I helped through roof issues all sold their homes, but every one of them said, I wish I had known this sooner. So now you do. I put all of this in the Sunshine State Handbook. It's free. Scan the code or grab it at a link below. And as always, I'm Tom McNamara, and this has been the Florida Real Estate Insider. See you in the next one.